circulation. You're seeing the mesocyclone in motion, Lauren.
Cool.
This is a time lapse. Again, it wasn't necessarily that quickly. I'd say if you were close enough to see that, you would have some problems. But this was from Ryan Carty. Ryan is spotting in parts of South Dakota, actually, and I was trying to think of the actual community he was in, but he would send us some video yesterday. But he's been on another spotting trip there from South Dakota to North Dakota, but he had some images that he shared of some hail-producing severe thunderstorms, but nothing like that.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't see that every day. But
No,
of course,
no.
as you said, it was sped up, but certainly
Right.
things have been a lot quieter here in our neck of the
Yeah, and that's the thing. This time of the year, what we see is the greatest tornado risk shifts into the northern part of the country this time of the year, and that's where you have most of that wind energy and jet stream energy. So when we deal with storms around here, mostly it's hail. We can't have straight line winds a lot of times, some big lightning producers. We're tracking some of those right now, and we'll go over here in a few moments because it's absolutely pouring in Centerville right now. And you can see that storm that we're tracking there moving south of Centerville, and that is moving into parts of Chilton County and to the south and the east. So there is some motion to this, even though it is really coming down here. There is a motion to the southeast. This will come to an end, and this is the thing the next few days. If you have a big trip planned or if you have an event outdoors, just know it might be raining one moment. Well, you can see now all that rain starting to slide to the south of town. Just have a backup plan, and looks like maybe some, well, I believe that's just where the trucks are parked there, but you could see that the rain certainly backing off here in the downtown Centerville area. But delays will be temporary, so just have a backup plan. If you're going out to the lake, have a shelter in case there is a threat of lightning this weekend. Looking ahead, we're going to be seeing, looks like afternoon storms through early next week. Right now on radar, a lot of lightning's been happening here across parts of Cherokee County and to Calhoun County and moving into areas to the south. Also, there was that storm in Centerville and then Alexander City, and then watching areas south of Hamilton and north of Fayette, over towards Winfield and in that vicinity for the threat of lightning. And I did put some communities on here, just giving you the first alert where I think that risk of lightning will be, not just limited to these areas, but just to name some locations next 60 minutes: Centerville, Glencoe, Aniana, Jacksonville. Just make sure you're checking our First Alert weather app as we track those storms in the vicinity. Want you inside and away from that cloud to ground lightning. Otherwise, we've got the heat. We're 90 degrees right now at Talladega, Pell City, some of these locations. Tuscaloosa is right now an 89, and the heat index 97, 99 in Pell City, 100 here at Talladega. That's what it feels like with all that muggy air factored in. And it's interesting, you look at Fayette, the heat index 102. We've had those little pop-up showers just to the north. It's like, come on, a little bit of rain to cool us off there, but there's still a chance this evening, as you can see, even through 9, 10 o'clock. You're thinking maybe I'm going to wait a little while, get a walk in later tonight. Just keep an eye out for the possibility, even tonight, for a possible storm. And tonight also, we've got the full moon that will rise at 8:21. If you want to share a photo, it is the July buck moon. And if you've noticed, if you've had any deer in the neighborhood, all those antlers are in felt right now, and this is the time of year. That's kind of the nickname why they call it the buck moon. You know, we had the strawberry moon last month, so we try to keep up with all those. And nice view there, Lauren. Check it out there, those cumulus towers you can see off to the north. So still some storms trying to bubble up out there.
That classic summertime setup. Well, a very different story across other parts of the U.S. as heavy rain continues to drench areas across the nation. Flooding bringing more trouble to the Carolinas amidst cleanup efforts from the remnants of Chantal. Take a look at this video showing streets and sidewalks across North Carolina under several inches of water. Officials in Durham encouraging residents to stay home as some roads became impassable on Wednesday. Flooding also damaged a water treatment plant, which led to water restrictions across parts of Mebane. And a similar situation happening across Massachusetts this morning. Heavy rainfall causing disruption to the morning rush hour traffic, causing backups and stranded vehicles. Rainfall rates of 4 inches per hour reported in some communities. Officials also having to pull a man out of his vehicle after he got stuck in floodwaters.
It stopped right here. It just stalled right here.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was this deep. There was nothing telling me about this area right here, even though the police cars are down there.
And that's why we always say, turn around, don't drown. You can just never gauge how deep that water is. Well, all lanes were also closed at one point on I-93 due to the flash flooding. And in Texas, hundreds of people gather at a high school stadium for a vigil honoring the victims of the deadly flash floods. People came together on Wednesday to sing, pray, and mourn the more than 100 lives lost across 6 counties. Many in attendance wore blue shorts with the school's slogan or green ribbons for Camp Mystic to honor the 27 young campers. The event was held while crews and volunteers continued their search along the Guadalupe River. Licensed counselors and therapists were also at the ceremony to meet with people. And I actually had the chance to speak with Dr. Josh Claypo, UAB psychologist, today about the effects of tragic events like these natural disasters and how they can impact not just your physical health, but your brain too. There's a lot surrounding this disaster, the recovery efforts, and I think one thing that people may not focus on quite as much is the mental health aspect of that and what can happen once you actually get past the actual tragedy and trying to process trauma. How can people recognize trauma in these situations?
I think it's a great question, because when you think about the event, there's the flooding, but as we know, it's not on a day. So it keeps going. And then there's the aftermath of the floods, the destruction, the recovery of bodies. So the level of distress and the level of trauma that you're talking about, it goes on for a while. And so a lot of people will feel symptoms, things that even if they're not there, even if we're here and you don't have a direct connection, although, here in this state we had at least one direct connection, sadly, tragically, but they'll feel things that catch them off guard, and a lot of people will worry something's terribly wrong with me. So for example, it is absolutely normal after something like this to have problems sleeping, to have sometimes nightmares, to have a hard time concentrating. Obviously, if you're focused on it, it's hard to concentrate, but it's also just hard to concentrate even when you're doing your daily work. You may feel sad, you may feel nothing. We call it emotional numbness. And a lot of people will say, oh my gosh, I'm developing PTSD. No, we call it an acute stress reaction. It's basically your brain's way of trying to sort of hold off all of this so it can process it over time. So those kinds of symptoms or experiences after an event like this are normal. They're very normal. And really what differentiates that from something like a PTSD is that for most people these things settle down within a month. After about a month or so, if they're not, now you're looking at something more like post-traumatic stress.
I think it's so helpful to be able to put a name to what you're feeling too. I know I feel that personally when dealing with depression and anxiety. Sometimes just calling it out loud and saying what it is super helpful.
It is, and you saw me kind of hesitating because when I say acute stress reaction, that's not a diagnosis, right? That is what happens to almost all of us when we experience something that is what we call outside the realm of normal human experience, something tragic. And I think where a lot of people get caught off guard is they may be at home, they may be watching this. You and I talked about, I did another interview, I started welling up in the interview, and they're like, this is horrible, but why is this impacting me so much? You put all the layers, kids, camp, tragic loss of life. As humans, we don't actually have to be in the situation to have that trauma response. And that's why, I emphasize it is normal. It's distressing. It doesn't feel good. You need to do things to kind of manage yourself. Sometimes you got to step away from the news and the information. Sometimes you have to pay more attention to your health and well-being. But for most people, it will reside, within a month.
All right, time for a radar check here on First Alert Weather Extra, and we are still seeing quite a bit of pop-up storm activity here. Jacksonville looks like right there along 278. Quite a bit of lightning, up to 70 strikes. So these storms are actually in a strengthening mode right now. Need to be indoors. Knighton's Crossroads back into Glencoe, really coming down. And city of Piedmont, right there's Piedmont, and it is raining over Piedmont back in towards Nancy's Creek and Duggar Mountain. Aniana, also an area I mentioned a few moments ago, not seeing lightning, but this cell's going up. So Aniana over to Altoona, could see some development there. In Bluntsville, there's North Walter and Coleman, a few pop-ups. And now starting to see, it looks like a little cell south of Carbon Hill there along Highway 13. So again, there are some scattered areas of rain north of Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Anniston, and we just need to watch it here over the next few hours. Now tomorrow, it looks like that coverage is going to be greatest scattered to the south and then more widely scattered further north you go, but we've got to watch it again for tomorrow afternoon. The dog's days of summer just continue as we head into the last few weeks of July here, Lauren, and you know, it's that time of the year and all week long we've been tracking these afternoon storms, but it really has a big impact on that heat index as well.
It really does. You know, those storms can almost hurt or help you. It really just depends, because sometimes those storms come through and it can help to cool you off. You get that little rain cooled air. The problem is storm likes to pop, or the sun pops out after the storm comes through, and then it heats it up and it's basically a sauna again. So you just can't win in summer in Alabama. So we've been seeing high dew points. Remember, dew points tell us how much moisture is in the atmosphere. So because we've had so much moisture in the atmosphere, that has helped it to feel hotter than what it actually says on the thermometer. But we've certainly seen worse. So I would say for tomorrow and Saturday, remember tomorrow we're forecasting highs in the upper 80s. So when you factor in the humidity, it could feel more like the mid 90s, potentially upper 90s Saturday. And then as we begin to see this ridge of high pressure that's going to be building in as we get later into the weekend, early next week, that really helps temperatures to stay more consistently in the low, if not mid 90s. And so you amplify that with the humidity in place, and that's what could make it feel like the triple digits in the days ahead. Now, I will say, in the days ahead, we're not seeing anything right now that would stand out as heat advisory criteria. But, you know, even if there's not a heat advisory in place, it's summer in Alabama. We have the misfortune or fortune of being right next to the Gulf. And so that just brings that humid air mass inland during the summer and makes it feel so soupy outside. Well, if you are going to be doing anything outdoors as we head a little closer to the weekend, just wanted to give you a look at that Skeeter meter forecast, because I was just sitting here during the commercial break and I'm like, why am I itching? Because I happened to be out in my yard the other day doing some yard work. So I think for tomorrow, for Friday, hate to break it to you, but this probably comes as no surprise. We have a first alert for the Skeeter meter being in the extreme territory. We've got more storms around tomorrow and high temperatures will be in the upper 80s. Definitely mosquitoes like when we kind of get into that 80s, upper 80s territory, and then still running high for Saturday and Sunday. So you'll kind of know how this works. Wear the bug spray, or if you have any of those kind of Skeeter things that can protect your yard, I would definitely have those on as well. So looking at the pool forecast for your Friday, notice as we get later into the afternoon, we do have a better chance of some scattered showers and storms developing. It's definitely not going to be a washout, but before those storms come through, make sure you're wearing your sunscreen, staying hydrated, and of course, have that First Alert weather app set to receive notifications for lightning or precipitation alerts. Well, just like we want to stay inside when it's hot, our pets need some relief from the heat too. Shelby Humane Executive Director Sandra Ivy saying dogs can't tolerate heat very well. While we have sweat glands, dogs can only cool themselves through panting. Ivy says you should provide them with lots of water on those hot days, and they shouldn't be kept in direct sun. One thing to also remember is that a doghouse doesn't count as shade.
I would not expect them to stay in the doghouse because the doghouse holds heat. It makes it worse. And so you need to be able to bring them in, or either put them, if they can get under a house, that's even better because that's cooler and a little bit more moist. But they've got to have shade, got to have water. But ideally, they won't be out there in the middle of the day.
And we'll be right back with a look at more Weather Extra and that extended 10-day forecast coming up after the break.
And welcome back to First Alert Weather Extra. A lot of rain falling right now in northern Calhoun County, and we do have storm in the vicinity. So another day with a threat of a lightning out there. Make sure you are seeking shelter. And that rain picking up, big raindrops as we see often this time of the year. 84 degrees and the winds out of the south at 7 miles per hour. We've had a nice breeze today. Lauren and I were talking about that this afternoon, even though it's still hot and steamy. But this is the strongest storm in our area right now, and the lightning, the count, you can see it jumped up, went up to around over 80 strikes over the past 15 minutes to now showing, looks like it's leveled off there in the about 68 strikes. But the lightning's popping, cloud to ground. You can see from Cobb City and Glencoe back in towards Jacksonville. There's Asbury, and then north towards looks like Greenwood and Rock Run in the southern Cherokee County. So Piedmont, Rock Run. You need to be alert there. I'm actually visiting Piedmont on Saturday, and we're tracking some spotty storms. Carbon Hill, a little cell there, might get some lightning showing up. You look at the lightning count on this particular screen, that shows 198 lightning strikes, but that's from a lot of these storms that's back in across Mississippi. The lightning counter picks up, it counts the number of strikes based on what you see on the screen, but there are some areas in here where we might get a bolt of lightning. So just, you see that dark sky, and that rain starts to pick up. Watch around Hamilton and Marion County, some of those storms trying to build southward there. We'll keep an eye on that, but the rain chances stick around. Looks like through tonight, 10, 11 o'clock, might be one or two storms still out there we may be tracking, and then tomorrow morning another calm start to the day. It looks like the storm coverage kicks off again by midday tomorrow, and a decent chance for areas to the south. That said, every location needs to be alert for the threat of lightning. Now, one of the next big things, by the end of the weekend next week, I'm watching to see if this upper air ridge is going to build back into the southeast. If that, or southwest, I should say, if that happens, it's kind of like that big heat dome that we were dealing with several weeks ago. Hotter conditions by Monday and Tuesday. The daytime highs only go up a couple of degrees, but as Lauren was noting with heat index, that could certainly have a big impact on heat stress levels out there. So need to watch that. We could be talking about First Alert Weather Day possibilities into next week if we do indeed see those temperatures there rising back into the low to mid 90s. But looking ahead to next week and towards the middle of the week, we still have a chance of rain in there. The rain chances don't go away. So when we start talking about that kind of level of heat, Lauren, we certainly, some of those afternoons, we can have some impactful storms as that heat builds during the day.
Oh yeah, we always say, Wes, it only takes a matter of time for that heat bubble to pop, and when it does, it can certainly be pretty potent. And it makes sense. What energizes storms? Heat in the atmosphere and that moisture. So if it's really hot and humid, then those storms can sometimes be a little bit fierce. So as we look beyond the 7-day, looking at the temperature outlook from July 16th through July 20th. So this is taking us into the middle of the month here in the southeast, likely seeing the possibility of above average temperatures. So what does this mean? Well, typically this time of the year we're in the low 90s. So this could mean potentially getting into the mid 90s. And then the precipitation outlook, this has not changed in quite some time. The possibility of above average precipitation. Now, this doesn't mean it's going to be a deluge all day long, July 16th through the 20th, 6 to 10 days from now, but just hinting maybe you could see the possibility of better coverage than you would on a typical summer day where you just see a few hit or miss storms. And of course, something we want to watch too as we get later into the July month is, could we see anything developing in the tropics? So this is looking at next Friday, July 18th, and this is one of our long-range models showing there could at least be some moisture in the Gulf and in the western Atlantic. So if you had a situation where you've got this ample tropical moisture in place and the environment was conducive to see maybe an area of low pressure form, then maybe we could see something. But I will say it doesn't necessarily look like the environment is all that favorable, even though some of the models have been hinting, hey, maybe there could be a weak low that develops. It looks like we could maybe be having some more hostile winds around the Gulf Coast as we get into next weekend. So it's certainly something to watch. If you have a hostile wind environment, that's going to help to prevent any type of low pressure from developing. But regardless, you can still have plenty of tropical moisture around, and that's just the atmosphere trying to wring that out. And it can come down sometimes if heavy downpours with any storms that develop. And so you can see here we are, July 22nd, a Tuesday, still showing that possibility for some enhanced storm coverage that week as we get later into into July. So nothing too unusual for summertime by any means. We'll have a final look at your forecast after the break. And a final check on Weather Extra. First, as we continue to bring the latest on the devastation out of Texas, our parent company Gray Television is partnering with the Salvation Army with the Together for Texas initiative. And tomorrow, along with our sister stations in Texas and other stations across the Southeast, we'll be airing the television special Together for Texas. It will follow thousands of first responders and volunteers assisting those affected by the flooding. The special airs right here on WBRC at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow evening instead of Weather Extra.
Yeah, and we're going to be tracking some more scattered storms tomorrow. It looks like right now, Lauren, we do have some pop-ups that are moving into parts of Marion County. We want to give folks the first alert there. Also Jacksonville, some heavy rain and storms moving in. Some movement to this, so it won't last all night.
Yeah, that's always good news.
All right, we'll see you tonight, first at 9.